Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Ronan Farrow's new book, Catch and Kill, details the sexual harassment, abuse of power, and cover-ups at the highest levels of Hollywood and the NBC network, where he once worked.
It was an Amazon top seller last week. I mean, by now, you have to have heard of this book. It has been the topic of almost every conversation on every website and cable news show for the past couple of weeks, even before it came out. Ronan, it's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Delighted
Thanks for
to
having
have
me.
Okay, before we get into these questions, I just want to quickly, in like 30 seconds or less, try to explain one of the big storylines of the book, and that is basically this, and correct me if any of this is wrong, because I probably will get something wrong. You were working on this story about Harvey Weinstein, right? You're at NBC News. Harvey then allegedly approaches NBC and says, I want this story killed. He comes up with some kind of deal with NBC, according to your reporting, and the story kind of goes away, right? So you end up taking the story to the New Yorker, it's published, there's lots of ramifications as a result of it. Harvey basically, according to your reporting, says, well, I'd like to have this story killed, and in my back pocket, I got some stories here about Matt Lauer, your biggest star at the time. You end up getting this published in the New Yorker, you get a Pulitzer Prize, and then now here we are.
Right.
Here we are. Is that basically it?
That's roughly right. I mean, the reporting in the book is all meticulously fact-checked. It is very careful and measured in how everything is laid out. So, you know, you don't see, mustache-twirling backroom deals signed in blood. What it looks like is a swath of secret emails and calls, at least 15 calls between Harvey Weinstein and NBC executives, which they had previously concealed and are now admitting to, in which, some pretty shocking assurances that the story will be killed are made. And this matches up with Harvey Weinstein's claim in his legal threat letters to me and to the New Yorker and to others, where he said, I had a deal with NBC. They gave me written assurances that this story would be killed. And if you take this story elsewhere, they're going to assert a copyright claim on the material. So, we lay out in full and very fairly NBC's denial that they ever cut a deal like that. But, the records and transcripts of calls suggest that there were promises made on those calls.
I mean, you had tons of evidence. It was enough for the New Yorker to run with it. You won a Pulitzer Prize. Nonetheless, NBC is disputing a lot of your accounts. But if they are all true, factually, do you think that NBC President Andy Lack and news chief Noah Oppenheim need to be fired? And what does this say to America, people watching NBC News, if they're not fired?
Obviously there are a lot of calls for that right now, especially inside of NBC, where there are wonderful journalists who deserve the space to pursue tough stories like this, and also people working there who deserve the protection that you get when serial predators are removed from their jobs, and there is accountability. And what you see in this company, and so many companies I've reported on, is instead a pattern of corporate and legal cover-ups, where they are paying women over and over again to make this problem go away and keep people who are allegedly committing crimes in their jobs. That risks getting people hurt. I lay out those facts. My job as a reporter is to do so carefully and fairly, and I've done that, and I'm gratified to see there's a conversation about it. What should happen, what companies should do in response to revelations like this, it's not my job to say.
Well, do you think women, the executives at NBC, the top-ranking women, have some sort of responsibility and accountability as well? We're talking about the heads of HR, right, and also general counsel. They were women, so they must have had a hand in the shaping of any backroom deals, right, hush money or payments. What is their role here?
And there are both women and men who conspire in this book to shut down brave sources struggling to speak and to shut down reporters working on this. There's a whole plot thread that unravels in this book about Lisa Bloom, a famous lawyer and activist on women's rights issues who had been a friend of mine, who actually was working as a double agent for Harvey Weinstein. That runs all through this. And, I think it is relevant that at NBC News in particular right now, you have an all-male chain of command in terms of primary executive leadership. And there's an exploration that I think is very fair in the book about their attitudes and, some of the things like the president of NBC News once wrote op-eds for the Harvard Crimson saying, women desire to be preyed upon. They like being pumped full of alcohol. So it is about specific people, but it is also about these vast systems, and that is women and men.
One thing that I thought was really interesting is that we often want to see angels and devils in the narrative. But toward the end of the book, you actually give the president of NBC News, Oppenheim, a moment of grace. because you have a phone conversation with him in the book, and you say that he asks, sometime down the line, Ronan, I would love it if you made it so that I wasn't the, the enemy here. And you give him that. You say that he wasn't the enemy. Why did you do that?
Well, so that's an important passage on multiple levels. He says, I'm not the villain. I had bosses who made these decisions. He passes blame to Andy Lack, his boss, the head of the news group at NBC, and his boss's boss, Steve Burke, the head of NBC Universal. And throughout the book, what you see is in situations where if one person had taken responsibility in corporate leadership and said, you know what, this is important, and we've heard audio of a guy confessing to serial sexual assault. We literally had Harvey Weinstein on tape confessing. And people might get hurt if we don't report this. Let's really seriously, if we don't feel like there's enough right now, make sure this reporter is empowered to go out and get more. Instead, there was this order to stop all calls, to cancel interviews, and that is a direct result of that kind of attitude that Noah Oppenheim voiced, of people in leadership roles passing the buck. He says over and over again, these people don't work for me, my bosses are making decisions, and so when he says, I'm not the villain, that is true in a particularly sinister sense. Nobody thinks they're the villain, and everybody thinks it's not their responsibility to do the right thing. And I would just point out quickly, on the other hand, this book is full of characters who do stand up and do the right thing. My working level producer on this story refuses to shut it down, refuses orders to cancel interviews, loses his job after all of this. There are brave people in these pages, too. So I hope you see both the cautionary tale and the inspiring one.
I do want to talk about some of the, and there are so many headlines out of this book, but one of them is about President Trump. And just before the election, there's this, according to your reporting, there's essentially a notice at the National Enquirer that apparently there's an actual safe where all the dirt on Trump is kept, and there's an order to go into that safe and essentially shred those stories.
It's the first time a reporter has seen the complete contents list. They made a literal list of here's all the stories we've killed about Donald Trump. And as with so many stories about the National Enquirer and its collaboration with Donald Trump to kill stories that were unflattering about him during the election, the underlying truth or falseness of the claims on that list of National Enquirer dirt is not really the headline. It was many accounts of affairs, which were consensual, and who cares? There was one discussion of alleged misconduct, the Jill Harth case, which some of your viewers may be familiar with. But it's not that on that list there were huge mega headlines that haven't come out yet. The point is, this is now the subject of criminal investigations about whether there were violations of election law, and there was a destruction of evidence right before the election. And it is part of a pattern that I document in this book of how the Enquirer and other media outlets became attack dogs for powerful people, including Trump.
We only have about 1 minute, but I want to get to a very important point because your reporting on Weinstein helped launch the Me Too movement. So I think we need to bring it back to this, which is people look at the producer that you detail, Brooke Nevels, who was in Sochi with Matt Lauer and claimed the alleged assault in the hotel room.
Yes.
She came back from Sochi and continued to have sexual encounters with him. One thing you described was she did something for him so that he could record a video for her boyfriend. Some viewers who don't understand the dynamics of power, right, in a corporate structure might say, well, why does she do that? Can you explain how power comes into play in these situations of sexual harassment?
This is a young journalist who was working with this man, the most powerful man at her company. And she readily admits, follow-on contact with him. Even follow-on contact where she says she was trying as hard as she could not to piss him off. She was afraid for her job. She was sounding as enthusiastic as possible. But she describes the reality as anything but enthusiastic, that she was tortured by the fact that he was asking for these follow-on sexual activities, that sometimes this happened in the context of her, as you alluded to, just needing to work with him, go to his office to get something for work for her boss, Meredith Vieira, and that he would be propositioning her for sexual favors then, and some of those interactions she describes as not even consensual. But fundamentally, also, while this is an important part of the context, and it's laid out carefully in the book, and Matt Lauer's thinking about all of this, and the fact that he considered it consensual is laid out in a very fair way in the book, what she says, which is so persuasive, is regardless of what came before and after, and regardless of how he interpreted that, whether he thought she was flirting with him at any point surrounding the alleged incident, the night of the alleged incident, she says she was too drunk to consent, and he proceeded with a sex act that she had said no to explicitly. So in her view, the actual assault is very cut and dry, even though we give all of that surrounding context.
All right, Ronan Farrow, that is a lot to think about. And when you think someone can end your career, sometimes you also feel like I have no choice.
Yes. And that is something that so many people in our business are familiar with, and I am so grateful to every brave source who continues to speak.
It sounds like this couldn't possibly have an optimistic ending, but it actually does.
It does. It really does. And people are saying that they're uplifted at the end of this. I hope people find that.
Ronan, thank you
right,
so much
thank
for
you.
coming.